a toxic relationship and had their ups and downs, and unfortunately it culminated with his death. Detectives and myself thought it was best to have her Baker Acted that evening, and we've had an open line of communication, and we've offered to sit down with them and provide any additional assistance that they may want to close their investigation.
I loathe to use Dr. Phil as a source, but in this case he does have more information than most, namely access to previous DV reports or records from the police department and a conversation with Clenny's attorney, as well as a fairly comprehensive interview with Obumseli's family.
We reached out to Courtney's attorney, Frank Prado, for a comment. He says Courtney's statements about the incident have not been released by law enforcement. Therefore, the family's allegation that Courtney gave conflicting statements about Toby's death is absolute conjecture. He denies Courtney abused Toby or any other man she's dated, calling the allegations absolutely false. He also denies Courtney ever attempted to stab a previous boyfriend. He claims Courtney and Toby had a tumultuous relationship in which both were involved in episodes of aggression. However, he insists it was Toby who physically, mentally, and emotionally abused Courtney. He claims there is evidence Toby was trying to control Courtney by providing her with Xanax, and as discussed in our interview with the family, he also accuses Toby of involvement with an aspect of human trafficking of Courtney. He says Toby's death was a result of Courtney defending herself in what he calls a fight for her life. He claims Toby was involved in the commission of a forcible felony that night, and Courtney had every right to defend herself against a much larger and stronger individual.
This was the conversation that Phil had with the attorney just after the police had closed the case, assuming that it was a self-defense case, and had let her go. But it does give us an insight into how they plan to argue the case in court. Now, we don't have the benefit of asking Toby what happened because Toby is now dead. He doesn't have much of an internet presence other than his social media accounts, and so all we have left is to listen to his family.
And Karen, do you see him as someone that has a personality that could cause a woman to fear for her life just by his demeanor?
No, Toby is 6'2". He's a muscular guy. He played college football, but in no way, shape, or form did he have an intimidating stature or, a threatening presence, Everyone who comes in contact with Toby would describe him as very jovial. He likes to joke around a lot, but mostly is that he's calm.
Florida is a stand your ground. You can use self-defense, but only when deadly force has been threatened to be used against you. So what we do know is that Toby did not have any weapon. There have been witnesses that we have discovered. One previous boyfriend has indicated that she attempted to stab him on more than two occasions. There is an individual that was visiting that apartment that doesn't know Toby or Miss Courtney, and they videoed an incident before where Courtney being downstairs trying to do harm to herself, and Toby was the person that was trying to calm her down. We've located witnesses that the police have not even interviewed that Courtney got into an argument after allegedly drinking and and apparently she was showing very physical behavior against Toby.
Well, let me ask some questions here. Does he have a history of being violent with girlfriends in the past? Has he ever been charged with assault or domestic violence with any girls that he's dated before?
No, he hasn't.
Now, you would think at this point, Dr. Phil being Dr. Phil, and for dramatic effect, he would pull out a bunch of police reports reporting that Toby had a record to contradict them. But he doesn't, because there are no such records.
And Toby was, he was studying business, right?
Yes, he was studying.
At
yes,
Tech?
yes. He wanted to be an engineer, but then he also wanted to do business as well.
I ask all of y'all what your occupations and careers were. What did you know about her occupation and career?
Toby had told the family about his new girlfriend when he came home for Thanksgiving in 2020. And so he shows us her Instagram, and he has stated that, you know, she was the OnlyFans model. And I just remember telling Toby, you know, like, is this something you're going to be serious about or whatnot? But he was really excited. Unfortunately, once they started dating, Toby stopped coming around.
On the power and control wheel, experts say isolation is the one that is likely to occur first.
What you're saying is we have a white girl that killed a black man and she's out walking around. You think it was the other way around? If a black man had killed a white girl, he would be in jail.
We know that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we all know that.
She is operating on privilege.
As this story progresses, we're going to hear numerous instances where Clenny tries to use privilege not only to get out of murder charges, but also against her boyfriend, as the prosecution drops recordings and evidence to prove their case.
Well, neighbors say that the police had been called half a dozen times to this apartment in the last month because of fights going on between these two, and police confirmed that they had responded to domestic violence calls a number of times. Did y'all know anything about that?
And there it is, complete with dramatic music effect. What he doesn't have is any records that indicate Toby was the aggressor.
Police confirmed that they had responded to domestic violence calls a number of times. Did y'all know anything about that?
Not that way, I know. We don't know the context of which those calls were made. We don't know if it was Toby reporting her, and we unfortunately don't have anyone to ask.
Under no circumstances, even if the conclusion, which is a factual conclusion, would be that she acted in self-defense, that is still called justifiable homicide. There's a dead person that is dead only because someone else took that person's life.
Several people that are closest to the couple report that she was aggressive. She was very jealous, very possessive of the people that she dated. The friends report that when she was under the influence of alcohol and drugs, that she got to be very violent.
Indeed, we do get to hear some recordings that Toby took secretly, submitted into evidence at the bond hearing by the prosecution, of her being verbally and emotionally abusive.
Frank Prieto says that there is competent and substantial evidence that she is the victim of domestic violence and, in fact, possible human trafficking. Do you know what he's talking about?
Have no idea. That would undermine the self-defense, because human trafficking, as you know, is when you prostitute someone for economic reason. You have them against their will. And so if he's suggesting that that is the basis of the motivation behind Ms. Courtney taking Toby's life, that undermines the self-defense within itself. But that is clearly not credible.
We also found some evidence to question her credibility on that claim in part 1 of this series.
Is y'all understanding that Courtney's implying that your son was pimping her out?
That's absurd, honestly. This is a woman who has a 2 million following on Instagram as an OnlyFans model, who travels the world, who freely of her own volition goes on podcasts bragging about the lavish lifestyle that she has. There's nothing to demonstrate her being held against her will. We don't even have any evidence to support that Toby was making any money based on the work that she had. The family supported Toby in many ways financially. So for her attorney to suggest that is just further insult to this entire experience.
In domestic abuse terms, that would be called DARVO, which means deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender.
Actually, you mentioned a podcast. She comments on that. Let's take a look at what she said on this podcast.
All right, so no offense, but you look like the type of girl that only dates like rich guys. Is that true? And don't be ashamed of it.
No, that's not true. I only date black guys.
What you trying to say? We could be rich too. What you mean? You might only date rich black guys.
Well, let me clarify. I only date rich black guys.
Rich black guys. There we go.
Clearly that podcast was edited by the time I saw it, because we only caught some of what she said, and she does indeed say the whole sentence. The fact that the original podcast has been edited tends to indicate that it's probably going to be used by the prosecution.
Watching that, it just conflicts what she said, that Toby was using her, if I should use that word, sentence, against her will. It's just very conflicting.
Not a rich black guy,
From my understanding, they met in Mexico, and it was right after he had lost his job. So he is not a rich guy, he's not wealthy.
I think it undermines the lawyer's statement about the human trafficking.
Totally agree, which is why I included it in part 1.
Were they still together at the time this happened, or had they broken up, or do you know?
If they were not together, I mean, Toby would not be in that apartment. So they were together.
The detective states that they had broken up over the week, but then later on reconciled on Saturday.
My brother's last post on IG was with him and Courtney, saying that he loved her.
Also, in the We in Miami podcast 2 weeks beforehand, she wasn't saying they were broken up. She was indicating that they were still together and they were still intimate.
A woman who insists on maintaining her anonymity claims she knew the couple. She says she's coming forward to tell the story of what she says she witnessed while spending time with them. We agreed to disguise her voice. Are we all connected?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here and joining us in this conversation today.
Of course.
Now, I understand that you and your boyfriend did have the opportunity to witness Toby and Courtney together. What did you observe?
In the beginning, they seemed very in love, and, they were having a lot of fun, and a few months in, it turned into something pretty dark.
You say it turned pretty dark. Are you talking about that verbal abuse and physical abuse?
Yeah, I mean, we knew Toby before he started dating Courtney. So, to see someone like him who was always bright and social turn into someone that was always being pulled away, and you could visibly see how the relationship started to stress him out.
And who was doing the abusing?
Courtney, 100%.
So it was always her that you observed being abusive to him, not him abusing her?
Correct. It would be something where she would get upset over the smallest things, and then she would have to pull him outside. And then it always escalated into us hearing her screaming at the top of her lungs. Over time, yeah, we did see some physical violence on her end.
And What form did that take?
She would be like hitting him on the chest or like on the shoulders.
You said that dating her for him was a, quote, full-time job.
With her job, he was catering to her full time. And, you know, not to say that he was miserable, like he had fun traveling and stuff with her. But with that came the dark side of her always like screaming and fighting with him.
How do y'all feel hearing some of these stories from someone that had the opportunity to observe them together?
Toby is a very caring young man, always ready to help where he can help. But unfortunately, I agree with her that he ended up on the dark side.
And you've been very careful to say that other than the observations that you've made firsthand that you can attest to, that the other things that you're talking about are just things that you've heard or learned or just allegations that need to be investigated and looked into.
Correct. You can speak to anyone in the downtown scene here that she's worked with or has partied at, and everyone has stories, but she has a past. Unfortunately, this time it went too far, and we never once questioned whether it was a thing of self-defense. We knew there was a lot of violence going on there, and we never thought it would go this far, but there's no question in our mind. Toby was a victim. He was a victim 100%.
Well, I appreciate you being candid about what you know to be true and what you think needs to be investigated. I think the family very much appreciates you taking the time to speak out. True?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bear in mind, Dr. Phil's exclusive with the family was carried out before Clenny was arrested, so I'm sure that this witness and other witnesses are on the prosecution's list.
I personally know Courtney. I've worked with her in the past.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a lot of spicy content with her. I went on a few trips with her, so I do know her personally. I've met her boyfriend, Christian. And I want to say I don't take sides. I believe in the justice system.
Absolutely.
I have my criminal justice degree. I think that everybody just is talking for clout.
Absolutely.
And that's what happens in the media.
Absolutely.
Fake news.
Yeah. So what is out there, it just keeps saying that Courtney stabbed her boyfriend and is out. And everyone was like, why is she out? Like, what is going on? And people don't understand, if that name's not out there, there's a reason why, like, her name was not out there on the news channels.
Right.
The only reason why her name was out there is because she has a huge following and everybody else was saying. But I do have intel because it's really spicy, actually.
Okay.
I'm kind of scared and
All
nervous,
right.
but I don't know. But so I guess what most people don't know is they actually broke up last month. So it's not even that they were even together anymore, actually.
Oh.
Yes. So he was actually stealing money from her and like back and forth, like for a full like 2 or 3 months, just stealing money from her account. And she was really upset about that, obviously.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if that was the reason the domestic violence happened or whatnot. But obviously somebody doesn't stab somebody for no reason. But I do know for a fact he was stealing money from her. They broke up already, and the cops have been called 5 to 7 times prior to this instant.
I did read that, yeah.
I've met her a few times, and I have seen them in altercations already, and I do believe she does have substance abuse problems, and I've seen it firsthand. But her boyfriend sat there willingly, like, always watched it and, like, kind of laughed about it. So I feel like this type of abuse is always just overlooked and like, oh, haha, she's just crazy. Like, maybe you should get this person some help before something crazy does happen, you know? So that's a big problem nowadays, I believe, that needs to be worked on. And supposedly she kicked him out, and he's been living like in like the common areas of her like place.
Of the building?
Of the building.
Like sleeping
What
on
do
the
you
couch?
mean?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, like he had nowhere to live, and that's why he was stealing money from her left and right. He had nowhere to go, I guess.
The whole thing just sounds toxic. Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah, like
for
that's
sure.
bad. Yeah.
I
think another thing too is I saw that she was posting on her OnlyFans after this whole thing happened.
Well,
so people are coming at her for that too.
Well, no, she was actually so that was the night she was arrested, okay. But then she was in what is it called, in a mental.
Oh, they Baker acted her?
Yes, Baker acted her for mental illness. Yeah. But I do know she's out obviously right now. I'm really hoping for the best for both his family and hers. This is a crazy incident. It's very
sad, yeah.
It's very sad. It's very viral right now. And people need to learn to just step back and let the law do their thing.
Personally, I think the family has every right to push forward. And now that they have, the law is doing its thing. Like, for example, collecting this video to use it as evidence.
Well, that was a friend of Courtney's named Samantha. Any reaction to that?
Her story is actually inconsistent with what Courtney told the detectives, which was that they had reconciled and that they were together.
As she admitted that this is information that Courtney has provided her as it relates to Toby stealing money, she didn't indicate that to law enforcement. So I think is the product of what Courtney is trying to do but she's giving contradictory statements.
Just hypothetically, let's assume that that's true.
It's motivation
for murder. Does that not just go to motive?
Yes. Goes to motivation.
Isn't that just terrible for Courtney?
It's definitely terrible, and it goes against self-defense. It shows a motive.
Well, I mean, that's motive.
Yes, absolutely.
Oops.
If she is telling people what that Samantha says she's telling people, that goes to motive and is a whole different...
Absolutely.
That's the most damning piece of information I've seen in the whole thing as to why she may have stabbed y'all's son. None of us were there, but there's certainly a lot of circumstantial information here that needs to be considered.
Surveillance video released Thursday shows Miami OnlyFans and Instagram model Courtney Clenney yelling at and repeatedly hitting her boyfriend, 27-year-old Plano native Christian Obumseli, weeks before investigators say she stabbed him to death.
Evidence gathered during the investigation of Christian's death showed that since November of 2020, he and the defendant, Clenny, had been involved in an extremely tempestuous and combative relationship.
It ended April 3rd with a 911 call.
Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying and he was losing feeling in his arm. Defendant Clenny is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby."
And now 26-year-old Clenny, with more than 2 million Instagram followers, faces a second-degree murder charge. Thursday, Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez Rundle and Miami police detailed what investigators call a challenging cross-country investigation.
At this time, all the necessary steps are being taken as we speak for her return to Miami to be held accountable for this murder.
Clenny was taken into custody by U.S. Marshals in Hawaii on Wednesday. Her attorney says she was getting treatment for PTSD and substance abuse there. Her attorney also claimed she was innocent and acting in self-defense. Police say that's what she told them on April 3rd when she was detained for questioning. She was eventually let go, but detectives say her story didn't add up.
Defendant Clenny admitted to having caused Christian's injury, also provided several inconsistent accounts about the incident itself.
Police found no injuries on her body to corroborate her self-defense story, and they say she even admitted the stabbing wasn't justified. But an arrest warrant wasn't signed until August 4th. By then, Clenny was out of state.
Sometimes you only get one shot at it, and you want to get it right, because we want to make sure that we do everything right by the book to ensure the family gets the justice they deserve.
For months, Obumseli's family continued to push for Clenny's arrest. Obumseli's brother and cousin from Texas stood next to their family attorney Thursday, a day they say they've been waiting for.
This is such a relief for the family, but it gives restored hope that even though delayed, justice will still come.